right here. Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, coming up momentarily. Hey, this half hour brought to you by Concerned Veterans for America. Look, our veterans work so hard for us. They risked their lives for us. They lost limbs for us. All they're asking is that you get involved. Concerned Veterans for America, we wouldn't be here without our veterans. I'd be speaking Japanese right now. Without them, we wouldn't even be here. Now, Concerned Veterans for America, the nation's leading advocate for veterans, simply put, CVA, advocates for policies that will preserve the freedom and liberty that we and our families fought and sacrificed to defend. So all they want you to do is sign up for their newsletter. Go to CV, the number 4a.org, cv4a.org, and sign up for their newsletter. And remember, their Defend Freedom Tour rolling through Virginia, Roanoke June 11th, Richmond June 12th, and Virginia Beach June 13th. How do you get involved? Just go to their website, cv4a.org. This message paid for and authorized by Concerned Veterans for America. 40 minutes past the hour. Joining us now, the guy that I wanted to be president in 2012. I was right then. I'm always right. Former Speaker of the House, my former congressman for a long time when I lived in Roswell, Georgia, and before that, when I lived by the airport. So, I followed him so that he could represent my family in Congress for all that time. Speaker Newt Gingrich, Speaker, good to have you with us, sir, again.
Well, it's with you and talk to the many conservatives in Virginia that you reach and who know to trust you and trust your judgment.
Well, it's always good to have you on, Mr. Speaker. Always a pleasure, and I got a chance to see you the other night. You were looking fabulous as always. I always have to start with a speaker story, right? It's how we always start because I have so many of them. I could talk for 5 days on it. But when you were speaker in Georgia and representing the 6th District in Roswell, you probably might not remember these, but you would have these quarterly, what they would call Washington fly-ins, and you had this package deal where your constituents, you'd pay a fee, and you could fly from Atlanta to D.C., and you set us up for the day. There was a reception in the evening, and in the evening at like 10 a.m. at 10 p.m. you did a private tour of the Capitol, and it was at night, and you took us all through the Capitol, and it was about 2 hours. It was like until midnight, and you gave all the history of it. I don't know if you remember that, but that was fabulous.
Well, as a historian, and of course they're working now on a movie on George Washington for the same very reason. I really think when you connect people with their country and you connect them with their history, you really deepen their love of America and deepen their understanding of being American. And as somebody who taught history and has written novels and books about history and made movies about it, I really love the opportunity to take people through our nation's capital and give them a sense of the history, the very rich history that is at the core of freedom.
And we used to sit there and say, okay, he's up all day, and now he's up till midnight giving, 10, 15, 20, however many of us went up there for the fly-in, a tour. Like, when does this man sleep? I remember saying that. But also my wife, the Fräulein, wanted to say hello, and also wanted to say that we went to one of your fly-ins to celebrate our anniversary. So, see, that's how committed she is.
Now that's dedication. I'm not sure if I were her. I accepted that as an anniversary.
That is dedication, and it was her idea. I would never have suggested that. So, I just want to tell you about that. Okay, share the transportation partnership deal. Fast Track went down yesterday, not at the hands of Republicans, but at the hands of Democrats. What's up and why?
Well, I think that you have a power struggle underway. The left wing of the Democratic Party opposes any kind of trade competition, which puts pressure on people to be competitive and to perform. And yet we know that what's made America enormously wealthy has been our ability to produce high-value goods, to ship them all over the world, and that an amazing number of American jobs depend on exporting goods and services all around the world. But there is this very strong feeling on the left that the Elizabeth Warren wing, if you will, that they are opposed to these kind of negotiations, and they have exactly the wrong attitude about the economy. You get a dynamic, vibrant economy with high-paying wages and with people with lots of jobs when you are constantly growing and constantly competing. And if you are not, if you're hiding and if you're trying to set up government regulations and government rules to avoid competition, you inevitably end up with a smaller economy with less income and with less opportunity. And I think the left in that sense has been consistently wrong. And you can sort of see the effect of their policies in Baltimore. I mean, nobody wants to, and the news media wants to talk about it, but the fact is the city of Baltimore's last Republican city councilman was 1942, and the last Republican mayor was 1967. They've had total control of the city, and they've made a disaster of it because their policies in the end don't work. The underlying principles go against human nature and try to stop change and stop the future and stop competition, and that's a road, frankly, for eventually crippling the country and leaving it impoverished.
Now, what about this attorney there, state's attorney Mosby, that is supposed to be independent prosecutor, state's attorney, and she's going on stage with people that are demonstrating. How does that look?
Well, I think the judge should, frankly, block her from being involved in the trial. I mean, this is a person who has shown her total prejudice. The people I talk with believe that the charges she's brought are false, and that the argument is false. I mean, remember, 3 of the 6 policemen who she's now charged are African American. So it's pretty hard to argue it's an act of racism, unless you assume when you become a policeman you cease to be African American. And on the left, of course, they're that whacked out about their idea of racial politics. Mm-hmm. But she clearly wasn't acting as an independent counsel. She's acting as a politician, playing to the mob. It is pure demagoguery, and it's very, very dangerous for the country. You cannot allow the criminal justice system to become the political prosecution system. That's a road that will destroy our freedom.
We're with former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Newt Gingrich, now a Virginia resident. Mr. Speaker, let's get to the ISIS situation. Had you gotten elected president in 2012, which was my choice, how would you be dealing with ISIS right now?
Well, I would be deeply involved in trying to go after ISIS everywhere in the world. ISIS should be thought of not as Iraq or Syria or any one place. ISIS is like a virus that you deal with epidemiology. It shows up in Denver. It shows up in Minneapolis. It shows up in Texas last week. And so you've got to have a plan which encounters ISIS wherever it appears and which is dedicated to defeating and destroying it. These people are our mortal enemies. I mean, if folks are cutting off your heads and you don't understand that they're not your friends, you have a really deep psychological problem.
So, Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia has been asking for some time for Congress to basically authorize this war that we're in, utilization of force, if you will. The Republicans, though, haven't really acted on it, so we're dropping bombs on sovereign nations like Syria with no authorization of war. Is that wrong?
Well, I said back on about the 13th of September 2001, 2 days after 9/11, that we should have a declaration of war against the entire movement because we need to make clear, first of all, that if you're an American citizen and you're helping these guys, you're engaged in treason, and you can only do that if there's a declaration of war. We should also make clear that we're going to do the things you do in wartime, which are not the same as criminal justice. Fighting a war against an enemy who wants to cut off your head is not the same as arresting a local citizen for speeding or jaywalking. And we need to understand that the rules of engagement for a city police force are not the rules of engagement for hunting down and killing terrorists.
Do you have a choice right now for Republican president in 2016 or a couple candidates that might be better positioned to defeat what appears to be Democratic Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton?
No, Chris and I are very close friends with almost all the candidates, and we are delighted to have such a strong field. I think that you've got great candidates from, Scott Walker and John Kasich and Rick Perry and Jeb Bush all the way across Mike Huckabee. You're going to have, Ted Cruz is doing very well in this early stage. Ron Paul's doing well. Marco Rubio's had an amazing month. So I think you're going to have a very rich field of candidates, maybe as many as 18 or 20 candidates out there. And I think the first debate in August will be very interesting.
It's certainly, well, we've got about 7 more minutes, Mr. Speaker. When I saw you Thursday night, you were at a event for one of your employees, one of your associates, Vince Haley, who's running for state senate, District 12 in Virginia. That's kind of the central Virginia area. That's a seat of the retiring Walter Stosh. It's a Republican area. There's a primary between Vince Haley and 3 other candidates on June the 9th. The winner of that primary is going to be in the state senate because there's no Democratic opposition. Obviously, you went to this event in Richmond in order to show your backing for Vince Haley. Why should he be the next state senator from Virginia?
Well, I've known Vince for over a decade. He's a wonderful family man. He and Bethany have 3 great children. He was born in Virginia. He is a solid conservative. He is a deep thinker. His proposal to eliminate the income tax, to use the surplus over the next few years to literally wipe out the income tax in Virginia, make it the number 9 state to have no income tax, joining places like Texas, New Hampshire, and Virginia. It's a brilliant idea and is the kind of leadership Vince will offer. And I think Vince will consistently take on the federal government when it overreaches. He understands that the threat of the EPA to raise electricity rates 20 or 30%, particularly affecting senior citizens and retirees. I just think you're going to see Vince Haley would be the kind of leader that Virginians will be proud of. He has big ideas. He's willing to work on. He is able to debate anybody. And I think that he'd be a great leader in Richmond.
It was interesting, Mr. Speaker. I actually put on a debate on last Tuesday night where the candidates asked each other questions. It was over the radio. And a lot of the questions the other candidate asked Vince Haley had to do with his association with Newt Gingrich and some of the policies that you had. Is that relevant to this candidacy? If so, why? If not, why?
Well, I think philosophically we're broadly in agreement. Vince agrees we should balance the federal budget. He looks back on the contract with America as something which is real leadership that led to real change with welfare reform and things that really moved America in the right direction. And I think Vince, in that sense, has worked with me to write a series of books, to do a series of movies, and he understands how I think, but he is very definitely his own leader. I mean, we have continuing arguments about how you'd approach certain things. He came up with the idea of abolishing the Virginia income tax on his own and worked with a number of economists on it. It is absolutely sound. And if you look at states like Florida and Texas, and having 0 income tax really increases job growth, increases income, and makes the state much more prosperous. So I think you'll find, well, Vince has learned a lot working with me. He is totally his own person, and he is a solid intellectual conservative, capable of understanding both what people need, but also how to get it and how to get government back to working again, and how to take on the federal government in its overreach to begin to force the federal government to back out of trying to run people's lives and trying to cost people's jobs.
Now, when you ran for president in Virginia, I know you were very frustrated. You couldn't get on the ballot. You couldn't get the signatures done. It was quite the debacle, if you will, Mr. Speaker. Now, Virginia is looking at to being really relevant in this process, moving the selection up to March, 3rd week, March, maybe having a convention. Is that something that you would be in favor of, or that you might even attend as a Virginian?
Well, I don't know. The state party has to make its own decision. We were in a situation where the person we had hired to help gather the signatures who was a professional signature gatherer, just plain cheated and submitted thousands of forged signatures and ultimately was faced significant legal consequences for having done so. So those are our fault because we didn't realize this guy was a crook, but it was not. It's one of those really unfortunate things. And I think Governor Perry and Senator Santorum also had a similar difficulty getting on the Virginia ballot. I would say that primaries, and my personal bias is in favor of primaries just because more people vote in them. There's a broader participation by the party. It gets to be a much bigger public debate about things. But I'd also be cautious about moving up too soon. I think that the number of states that are now moving their primaries up early means you're going to have chaos with too many states for candidates to campaign in a reasonable way. And a lot of this is going to degenerate into the national media and into who raises the most money because they're the only people who are going to be able to either have to have the national media like you or you have to have so much money that you can be in all these states simultaneously. So I hope a few states will decide to go in April and even May just to give people more time to debate, more time to understand. If we rush to judgment, we may end up with a very early nominee we haven't vetted very well and only discover the hard way during the summer that they have vulnerabilities that we weren't aware of.
Well, that's what we found out in 2012. That was why I was for Newt Gingrich. Final question. We're almost out of time, Mr. Speaker. Hillary Clinton, is she fait accompli? Is she going to be the nominee? Or could a Sanders, could an O'Malley, could a Webb make some noise?
Well, every analyst in Great Britain on Election Day said that the Conservatives were going to lose. They came back and won an outright majority, stunned everybody. Nobody, including the Conservatives' own pollsters, thought they could do it. Campaigns matter for a reason. I believe when you learn that Bill Clinton took money from the Chinese government and you learn how he took money from Russians and he took money from Nigerians and you go down the list, you begin to think, do you really want to turn the White House over to somebody who is willing to take foreign influence payments? And I think the American people, the more they learn about this, the less likely they are to either nominate or elect Hillary Clinton. So I think her nomination is not certain, and her election is a long way from being certain.
All right, we're out of time. We want to thank former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Newt Gingrich, for being with us, former presidential candidate 2012, and somebody that is going to go down in history for some time. Mr. Speaker, it's always an honor to have you on, sir. Thanks for being with us. Say hi to your family.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Newt Gingrich, coming up. Your calls, 888-480-5646. Keep it right here.
Intellectual.